أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنته الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by time that all man is at loss, that mankind is at loss, with the exception of the ones who believe and do the righteous deeds and enjoin in patience and enjoin in truth. That from the day that we are born, we begin to lose. From the day that we are born, it is a day of celebration. However, from that day, moment by moment, we're losing seconds and hours and minutes and days, weeks and months of our life. That the countdown begins at that time to go to the next world. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by this constant that is time. This constant, remember we spoke about variables and constants, that this is one of the constants that almost every element we have is dependent on this constant of time. That everything we speak about, every measurement we take is dependent on time. All of our detailed studies of the specific sciences are all based on this delta. Delta being the Greek symbol for change over time. That we study this change over time with everything, with every element, with life. Everything is all about what happens through time. And this time is only relative to our realm. It's only relative to our earth. It's relative to the rotation of our earth. This is it. And the relativity of this time changes as we go on, without going too much into the study of time per se. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by this time. He swears by time that all man is at loss. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. That whoever we increase in age, we reduce him in creation. Do they then not comprehend? That as you go on, you are being reduced in your creation. That as you go on, you are becoming closer to death. Yet, we sit back and we are in slumber. We ignore. We ignore and we watch our years go on. We celebrate our birthdays. We celebrate what we think are accolades. Amir al-Mu'mineen has a very beautiful word. That is, this quote of Amir al-Mu'mineen is great because it speaks about life in general and it has a bit of a touch of relativity within it. When he says, إذا كنت في إدبار والموت في الإقبال أو الموت في إقبال فما أسرع الملتقى. That if you are moving backwards and death is heading towards you, then how fast will the two meet? Now the actual wording seems as if you are moving away from death and death is following you. In a way that's true. But it's more true that both are facing each other and going toward each other at a fast speed. That you think you're increasing in life and therefore you think you are running away from death. That now I'm 50 years old or 60 years old or 30 years old. That this is 30 years that I have lived that others have not. And death is following me. However, what happens when they're coming head on? And this is what is happening, because as your number increases in age, you are actually decreasing in creation. You're getting closer to the time where it all ends. So Amir al-Mu'mineen says if they are both coming head on, then how fast shall they meet? And so during this period, we come up with our own accolades. That so-and-so got married, so-and-so got a child, so-and-so got his first paycheck, so-and-so is doing very well for himself, he's making so much money, for example. But what does all this mean once we leave? That if you think about it, at this moment that we are sitting down and we are commemorating the Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein salawatullahi alayhi. That from the day we were born till this day, it could have been an intricate and detailed novel that I was reading. It's just a memory, an implanted memory, a detailed memory. I can remember specific details from my childhood, from my youth. But every day up until this day, it's just like a flash. A flash. Small, little, intricate memories here and there, but it's nothing. And then once you're gone, this is all gone with you. What do you leave behind? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that إِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءٌ لِبَعْضٍ أو بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. That the oppressors are guardians of one another. وَاللَّهُ وَلِيُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the guardian of the good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Ayat al-Kursi. In Ayat al-Kursi in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيَأْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعَرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. That whoever disassociates with the tyranny and the oppression and hangs on to the truth, hangs on to the faith being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever hangs on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he has hung on to the firm handle. And this will never break, this firm handle. That in our lives, the only thing we have is that firm handle, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if we hang on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have something. That the only thing that we have is that. What we do for Allah, everything else is auxiliary. Everything else is peripheral. Everything else is secondary. It's not there. It won't remain. It won't remain. How many people, for example, that have had millions have come and gone? Millions, and they're not even remembered. They're finished. Once they're over, they're over. They're over, they're over. You look at people like Steve Jobs. It's a great example. Founder of Apple, multi-billionaire. So much money with all of these things, and then what? Once he's gone, he's gone. People don't care. They still follow the device and the brand, but they don't care about him anymore. They make a movie about him because a certain actor looks just like him, and that's it. Nothing else. Not because there's anything interesting about his story. And he's gone. Finished. Leaves behind a little digital device that'll be obsolete in so many years. Be non-existent in so many years. Just like the other digital objects just before it. However, the one who hangs on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and awliya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the one who remains behind. This is the one in the exception when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says mankind is at loss, with the exception of the ones who have faith and do the good deeds. These are the exception. Otherwise everybody else is a loser. That they're at loss. This is what we are. We're at loss. Without having that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just look at the most simple things. You look at our ulama, for example. When people think and remember our ulama, they think how great they are, especially the ones that hung on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that had a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that had a true connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just heard a nice narration. They say Allam al-Amini, one of our greatest scholars, on the night of the Ashir would give sadaqah on behalf of Imam al-Hujjah Aljaafaria al-Sharif, because he says on the night of the Ashir, Imam al-Hujjah's heart is under a lot of pressure. So I feel for my Imam, that he has that depth and feeling for his Imam. He's someone we speak about as if he is alive, as if he has never gone. Allam al-Amini said this and Allam al-Amini did this. As if he never went. That he's always with us and he's still with us. This is what the ulama have. The famous story of Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari when he's given money to buy a house. And when the merchant comes back and says, why didn't you buy a house? He said, I bought the best house. I bought a house in the hereafter. I built a house for God. This house for God that he built in Najaf still exists, and they still give lessons to Hawza students in this house, in this mosque that he built. He made a link with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him up and elevated him and made his remembrance eternal. Imam al-Hussein salawatullahi alayhi, he is the key. He is the key to this attachment to the Urwatul Wuthqa, to connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam al-Hussein is this grand exception who has this great status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of what he gave for the religion, that he truly connected completely and acted completely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who acts completely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not forsaken. You have a look at just minor things. People that don't have many friends and they want to find friends, they try and go to camps and stuff, and if they can't find a camp, when they get older, they say, I haven't met new people. They'll try and go on a cruise, or they'll try and go on a trip to Europe with a group, with a certain tour group or something, just so they can connect and find someone, because we're social beings. This is how we live. The thing is, I see people spend money on going to the best and most beautiful places in the world, and they come back empty. They come back empty-handed and empty. Maybe a few nice photos or something like that, but they come back empty-handed and empty. But when you see someone that goes to the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, someone that goes to this visitation, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed one of his most sacred beings, one of his most sacred creations, he has placed him in that land, in that deserted land, where there isn't any of the tourist attractions. There isn't nothing grand, there is no great food there, there's nothing nice to buy there. But there is our Imam there. When people go on this trip, go and ask them about the friends that they make. That these friends that they make for one purpose and one purpose only, it doesn't matter what work they do. It doesn't matter how much money they own, this friendship is based on their love of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and therefore this friendship lasts. They come back fulfilled with spiritual value, filled with spiritual morale, fulfilled with spiritual morale. When they go and visit Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the shrine of Abu Abdullah, that they go there and they know this is a place that is dangerous, that you may be killed on your journey there, possibly, unlikely, but it's a possibility, that you might go through some hardship on your way there. And yet the people flock. They flock to go there and to visit. And you may think that you hear it from 1 or 10 people or 100 people. Let's say there's 100 crazy people, but 15 million crazy people. That these people all go there and they come back fulfilled. Why? Because through this they get a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-Urwatul Wuthqa. Through this, through Imam al-Hussein. Why through Imam al-Hussein salawatullah alayhi specifically? And we've spoken in the nights about Imam al-Hussein's exceptional giving towards the faith of Islam, towards his master Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That everything and every action that the Imam did, every action that the Imam committed to, was all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we see that these companions, think about it, some people will look and they say, even when they hear that you're going to ziyarah in Iraq. So, as one of my friends was telling me, he was telling the people at work that I'm going on a trip to Iraq. So he said, I can imagine that they're sitting there and they say, oh, John, where are you going on the break? And he says, Nepal. I'm going to try and climb Everest or something. And someone else, where are you going? I'm going to Bolivia to see the Machu Picchu. And then another guy says, I'm going to Iraq. So they'll look at him and say, are you crazy? Haven't you not read the news? 50, 60 people are getting blown up every day. What are you going to do in Iraq? What are you going to see there? The reason that this person goes to visit Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is the status that the Imam has, because this person that goes to visit Imam al-Hussein sees life, he doesn't see death. He doesn't see the explosions. He sees that this is the source of life, that if I just hang on to Imam al-Hussein even a little bit, I have some purpose to life. I have some meaning. I have some remembrance other than my material gain. When we look at the companions of the Imams, and the companions of Imam Hussein specifically, when they're rushing to death, the conversation between the two enemies, after it happens, someone comes up and says, Wayhakum, woe unto you, what have you done? You have killed the household of the Prophet. So he says, the other man says to him, woe unto you. You speak about it as if it was an easy task. These people would run onto the battlefield and we would offer them security and they would throw that security in our faces, and we would offer them wealth and they would say, be away from the wealth. It was as if they ran on looking for death and only death. That's all they wanted. This is the way the enemy saw it, that they were looking at death and only death. This is how some people see it. They read it and they say, oh my God, these companions of Imam al-Hussein, they just wanted death. They wanted to die. But the companions of Imam al-Hussein didn't see death. They saw life. They saw the true life. They saw the reality to life. That they knew through this we have life. Through Hussein we have life. This is why you hear from the statements that they say that even if this world was eternal, then we would favor dying for you, Abu Abdullah. We would favor dying for you than that. And we see after this event that happened at Karbala, of what the Holy Imam gave. And we have spoken about it throughout the whole 10 nights, of this exceptional service that he gave to Islam, the exceptional service of reviving religion and morality as a whole. And the only way that could be done was through the way that was shown. That he gave everything that he loved. He has proven to us that every relation you have is nothing compared to the relation that you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, the other night, there was a lady that was ill, and so someone called down and said, look, there's a lady that's very ill, so please do dua for her. So I said that I asked Ayatul Madarisi to do dua for her, and he did dua, and Sayyid Abu Ja'far to do dua, and he did dua. And then after they finished, he said to me, Ayatul Madarisi said, find out who this person is, I just want to make sure that she's fine, that she's good. So I didn't find out. The next day he told me the same thing, find out, I want to know if she's fine. So when I called up and I said, look, what's the go? Who's this lady? Is she fine? They said, yeah, nothing's wrong with her. She's all right. She's good. I said, nothing's wrong with her. That night you called me. You're saying she's critical. Critical. She's going to die. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His awliya, through Abu Abdullah, that He cured her that well, that it even became a non-issue to the people. That 1 minute she's critical, she's going to die. The next minute, oh, maybe we were exaggerating. They weren't exaggerating. It was a critical situation. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it that smooth and that easy for her. This is the wilayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts one of us as His guardian, then He allows everything to come easy. He allows everything to come easy through you, through ways that you don't expect. Remember we spoke about وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. That one small example, when we look at the Hajj, we look at Sayyid Hajar, between the Safa and the Marwa, and Ismail was thirsty. He wanted water. So Hajar began to walk between Safa and Marwa. She would see a mirage and think there's water, and she would run, and she would run back, and she would run back. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us an example. That when it's through me, it will, I say be, and it becomes. But if it's through you, you'll be tired out, and you won't get what you want. So Sayyidah Hajar ran back and forth, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the water to appear under the heel of Ismail. And just appeared, it became. That Allah shows us the two pictures here. One picture is you running, following this world, trying to find what you want. But if you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it comes from whence you know not. That this valley, this barren valley which is Mecca, imagine an eternal spring comes forth from under the foot of Ismail. No doubt it's from the blessing of the Prophet. And the fact that he has the nur of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad in his loins. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing a great example here. That if you connect with me, that if you link up with me, that if you take me as a guardian, then everything becomes good. I make everything be. So people, when they look from a material perspective, that Sayyid al-Shuhada, Ruhi lahul fida, that Imam al-Hussein, he died while he was thirsty, while he was hungry, and before this he saw everything that is the most beautiful to any man die before him. His beautiful sons, his beautiful brothers. You know, sometimes I met a brother once from the other sect of Islam, and he said to me, you know, you look at your son, if your son is smart, then put him in university. If your son is dumb, off to jihad, straight away. You sort it out from the beginning. However, when we look at Imam al-Hussein, his relatives and his family were all beautiful and intelligent. When I say beauty, I mean intellectual beauty. That these factors that they had within them, the degree of ata, the degree of giving and generosity and karam and honor and manners, the most beautiful of people, and he sees them slaughtered one by one, one by one. And what do they say? That his face began to glow. And then even when they ask Sayyidah Zainab when she reaches the Kufa, which we'll hear about in the coming days, and Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad says to her, and how do you find what Allah has done to you? That Allah killed Imam al-Hussein. And how do you see this? And she says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. That I've only seen beauty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That everything that Allah sends my way is beauty and beautiful. That she sees the reality of the action. That yes, to you it may look like that all these people were martyred, and then the women were taken prisoner. From a material perspective, yes, this is what happened. But that link with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where did it raise them? Where did it take them? Honestly, I ask you, how many programs do we attempt to uphold, Islamic programs, and we advertise and we do everything and we get numbers, but like the numbers that we get in Ashura, nowhere near. Nowhere near. And the people come without advertising, without anything, their hearts burn to come and hear and learn about Imam al-Hussein, to have that small link with Imam al-Hussein, to have that small connection, because that connection will carry you through this life and the hereafter. I swear to you, you ask the people that have a link with Imam al-Hussein, that serve Imam al-Hussein, on every facet, on every degree, that you see people, for example, that are just, from the smallest helper to the greatest alim, that are in service to Imam al-Hussein salawatullahi alayhi, and go and ask them about their lives. They get the best of this world, believe me, and the best of the hereafter. Do you know what the purpose is behind getting so much money and wealth? That with money there's power. But the thing about money, it's not just about power. It's about gaining respect among your peers. That certain things we do so we can gain some respect from our peers. So we gain money. It's like one of the American billionaires. They asked him, what's it like to be super rich? You're a billionaire. He says it's like being 6 foot tall and having a full head of hair. He's a bit old. So he says that having this sort of appearance, you would be attractive to the people around you, apparently, from a material perspective. By having a nice fast car, you're attractive to the people around you. And so therefore you demand their respect because of the wealth that you hold. But you look at the one who is the servant of Imam al-Hussein, no. He has the respect of his peers, he has the respect of everyone of mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this to come towards him. He has the best of this world and the hereafter. Think about it, Imam al-Hussein in this world, he's huge. And the hadith says that he is greater in the hereafter. The similitude of the givings of Imam al-Hussein, the similitude of the sacrifices of Imam al-Hussein, are to this story that I'm sure you've all heard, but there's no issue with repeating the story, about a king who went on a hunting trip. And this king, during his hunting trip, he gets lost. And when he gets lost, he loses his friends, he loses his companions. And as he's going through the forest, he walks around and he finds this small little hut. So he walks up to the hut and he says, look, I'm dying of thirst and hunger. Have you got anything? Please. So the man says, that lives in the hut, that all I have is this goat, but I'll sacrifice the goat for you. So he sacrifices the goat, and he kills the goat, and he cooks it for the man, and he gives it to him to feed him, and he gives him water to drink. And so the king is very grateful. However, this man in the hut doesn't know he's a king. So he says to him, if you ever pass by so-and-so town, mention my name and I will repay you. So he walks away and he goes back home. The old man in the hut, who lives with his wife, they both go past the city one day and they said, we'll find out. Do you know where so-and-so lives? They said, of course, go to the palace. So they go to the palace and they find that this king is king. They didn't know he was a king. And so the king says to his advisors, this is the story, and you judge. That I was hunting so and so happened, and I went to this hut and I found this old man, and the old man had a goat, and I asked him, I'm hungry and I'm thirsty. And when he killed the goat, I said to him, why did you kill the goat? Do you have other than it? He says, no, this is the only goat that I have. He says, why did you kill it? He said, because you're my guest and you have come here. You're my guest. So he kills the goat and he cooks it and he gives it to him to eat. So the king says, what should this man's reward be? What should this man's reward be? So one of them says 100 gold pieces. And another says something else. And then one of his advisors says, no. He gave you everything that he had. Therefore, you should give him your whole kingdom. Take off your crown and give it to him. Because he has given you everything that he has. So the king, the example of this king, is obviously through the example we see Imam al-Hussein salawatullahi alayhi. Through Imam al-Hussein and his sacrifices that he gave everything, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him an exceptional reward. He gave everything, he gave him an exceptional reward that in this world, he would have this status. That even in this world, he has this status. Why? Because of who he is. Not just because of his lineage. Not just because he's the grandson of the Holy Prophet of the greatest creation and what the Holy Prophet says about him. But every good attribute that you can think of in a human being, you will find within Imam al-Hussein salawatullah. Every good attribute. And everyone loves the good attributes. You know this. That nobody, for example, even a liar does not like to be called a liar. A thief does not like to be called a thief because it's not a good attribute. But everyone loves honesty, everyone loves bravery, everyone loves generosity, and all of these are encompassed within the Imam. So therefore in this world he has this, and in the hereafter he is even greater. Even greater. The only stories that we hear about of what we could imagine that are in the hereafter are like the traditions we hear during the Isra and Mi'raj when Rasulullah says that on the right of the Arsh is written, or on the saq of the Arsh, on the leg of the Arsh, or the right of the Arsh is written, Inna al-Husayn masbah al-huda wa safinatu al-najat. That Imam al-Husayn is the lantern of guidance and the ark of salvation. There's a story where these youths, they used to always hang around together. You know, sahrat, masahrat, from this guy's house to that guy's house. So they used to go to different houses. One day, they asked to go to one of their friends' houses. Can we go to this person's house? So they asked this man, can we go to your house? To this youth, he says, after ask my father. He asks his father. His father is someone that has a strong connection with Imam al-Hussein. So he says to him, that's fine. You guys want to come and have a sahra, that's okay. However, if you come to my house, you have to do a majlis for Imam al-Hussein first, and then you can sit down and hang out. Whatever. But a majlis first for Imam al-Hussein. So they agree. And they do a majlis for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam at this person's house. Every time. They want to do a sahra, they do this. Years passed. And one day, this man's father, he passes away. He dies. He goes to the next world. The youth sees him in a dream. The youth sees him in a dream. And he says to him, tell me something about the other side. I want to know just anything. Give me something about the other side. What have you seen? He said, I would love to tell you, but it would be like describing a color that you have never seen. Let alone describing a color that we have seen. Imagine trying to describe the color blue to a blind person or the color green to a blind. What are you going to say? Green is cool, tree-ish. I don't know. But you can't describe it to a blind person. They have to see it to understand it. So he says to him, I can't describe it to you, but all that I can tell you is that Imam al-Hussein, if you think he is big in this world, in the next world, he is beyond. I can't explain to you how great and how much reward I got just for this. The status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me just for this. That everything is about that connection with the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the best and the fastest connection. The direct main, so to speak, is Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created and given this creation of his, that status, to be that fast track. On this night, we remember the family and the folk of Imam al-Hussein, that after he was martyred, this is when the true hardship started. This is when the real hardship, because once you attain martyrdom, you have attained martyrdom. Remember we spoke about death and the difficulties of death and the alam al-barzakh, and when your body gets taken to the grave and the fear of that, and when your body gets washed, and when you have to part with your family. The shaheed dies and his lap falls onto the head of a hur al-ayn. This is the death of a shaheed. The shaheed doesn't have any of these issues, no worries with the ghusl, no worries with getting placed in the grave, etc., etc. However, Imam al-Hussein and the shuhada of Karbala are another stage altogether. But after this, what is left behind is Sayyida Zainab, this mountain of patience, salawatullahi alayha, truly, that she is the one that carried and kept this message alive, that otherwise it would have been buried in the desert. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his avenues of truth, and Sayyida Zainab is one of these avenues or highways of truth, standard and monument of truth. That on the night of Ashura, finally after the killing had been done and the massacre had been finished and the women were wailing and the tents had been burnt and they had been sent, they had all ran from the tents from place to place, not knowing where to go. That on this night, the enemy then decide that let us now give them water. So they give Sayyida Zainab and the women folk water, and the majority of them refuse to drink at first. But they are thirsty, they are hungry, they are tired. So it is said that Sukaina takes some water and she flees. So Sayyida Zainab gets anxious. Where's Sukaina? Where is Sakina? She runs after her to find her. She says, she finds her. She says, Sakina, where have you gone? She says, Auntie, I have some water now. I'm going to find Abdullah Radiyah. He was thirsty. The last I remember of him was he was thirsty, and so I've got some water to go and give him some water. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure our sick and to have mercy on our dead and to hasten the reappearance of our holy Imam Aljaafaria Sharif. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and to guide us against our lower selves in the same way that He guides His awliya and the righteous of His servants against their lower selves. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Rahmallahu man qara surat al-Mubarak al-Fatiha. Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.